The Nashville Predators, wait, they won an overtime game? On today's show, we are going to recap that shocking outcome and talk about a surprising hero. Is there any chance the Predators are going to make it 2 wins in a row tonight against Carolina? We're going to preview that game as well on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast and to our Monday episode. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We do want to kick off this Monday episode welcoming any first-time listeners and, of course, giving that shout out to our Locked On Predators insiders and to our everydayers. We love walking through this wild Nashville Predators season with you all. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer with Penalty Box Radio. And my friends, you know I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
On today's show, we get to recap an overtime game, but this time, Emma, it was a win. I know, it is so shocking. I still can hardly believe I saw it with my own eyes. The other thing you might not believe is who the hero of overtime was. Emma and I are going to tell you who that was and what we thought of his play through the entire game. We are also going to look ahead to tonight's final home game before that Christmas holiday against the Carolina Hurricanes. Before we dive into all of that, do want to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. You can kick off a season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You're going to get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I can hardly believe we're saying this because really, we were in a 1-7 rut of talking about overtime games ending in just tragic losses. And there's some tragedy to what happened against the LA Kings, that it ended up in overtime. We are going to talk about a third period, but we want to concentrate on the fact that the Predators got 2 whole points, y'all. 2 whole points in a game that went past regulation. We're going to break it all down for you. We're going to talk about the unlikely hero. But before we do that, of course, we always kick off our game recaps with one word to describe the game. So, Emma, when you think back to Saturday night's game against the LA Kings, kind of how would you describe that in one or more words? Our show, our rules.
Well, I hate to repeat here, but I feel like with the unlikely hero and the way that it all went down, I feel like Saturday's game was the ultimate sure. Yeah. Why not? It was the ultimate sure game because
it was.
I mean, you saw some old demons kind of creep in with the whole, get a 2-goal lead and then give it up. And then it looks like you're going to overtime. And like you said, as soon as that happens, we're like, all right, well, that's a loss because this team doesn't win games in overtime.
No.
And then they won. So it was again, it was sure.
Who saw that coming? Nobody. And everybody all at the same time. Yeah. My one word for Saturday night's game, and I have to confess, I went into Saturday night's game going, probably we're going to lose about 5-1. Because LA was on such a hot streak. And I just was like, can the Nashville Predators, I feel like I have a little something that might be hope, could be gas, but it might be hope. We got to squash that. And then they come out and played really well. And again, we got to talk about that third period. But my one word to describe the game is a throwback to the Hunger Games movies, which our daughter, huge Hunger Games movies fan. And so my one word is Katniss Everdeen's red fire dress. Like the Predators came out and they played a game and I was like, okay, that's a good game. All right, I can respect what you're doing here. When they tied it up and went to overtime, I had that, well, that's a nice red dress. And then all of a sudden, the unsung hero started twirling and the bottom of the dress caught fire and everybody was like, what? It's not just a nice dress, it catches fire. And that's what this game felt like. It was like, okay, that's a nice red dress. Doesn't do anything else, but it's a nice red dress. No, that caught fire at the bottom and really, I think, energized a very energetic crowd. That was the most energy I think I've seen in Bridgestone Arena in a long time. It's been pretty quiet this season at Bridgestone Arena, y'all. So it was an interesting game to watch. We of course ask our insiders to describe the games in one word. Dustin says, "Pardon my French, but my one word comes directly from one of my favorite Christmas movies, Christmas Vacation." Classic. My one word is Merry Christmas, shitters full, because after all those overtime losses, the Preds had their fill of them and had to empty the tank to secure the win. Nice job, boys.
Wow, that's well done. As soon as you said, "Pardon my French" and Christmas Vacation, immediately my mind went to
Oh no.
Hallelujah, holy shit, where's the Tylenol? I was like, that could work too.
You know what? We may need to tuck that away because there is a game tonight, and maybe that'll be our one word. Chris's one word, woo! He was worried after that second period. We're going to talk about that, Chris. Man, Preds were up 2-0 after the second period, and Chris was like, are they going to give these points away? And of course, that almost happened, but it didn't. So if you missed Saturday's game, do you want to shout out the goal scorers from this game? Zack Laro getting on the board first for the Nashville Predators. And you just got to love what we are seeing from Zack Laro. He's had a little bit of ups and downs in some of his games. Some of his games have been better. Some of his games, maybe he's been a little quieter or not as impactful. This was one of those games where we really needed him. And it comes back to me, Emma, with the fact that he is playing with Ryan O'Reilly and Gus Nyquist, because Zack Laro battling in front of the net, which is great. But the pass from Gus Nyquist, who I swear has parental eyes in the back of his head, to put that puck right where Zack Laro could score. Yay for Zack Laro. But Gus Nyquist's daughters are going to get away with nothing as teenagers because he sees it all. It was incredible.
Yeah, that's a good point, that he's definitely got the dad eyes in the back of his head. Although we have seen a few instances with him this season where that has not gone as planned.
Very true.
But you know what? I go back to it was about a different player, different circumstances, but the conversation that we had with Carl Taylor over the summer
Yes.
about, in this case, it was about Yaroslav Askarov, and it's like, why does he keep coming out of the net? Doesn't that stress you out? And he goes, well, like, I forget exactly how he said it, but it was something like, you run the risk of like the bad thing happening, but
Mhm.
it's not worth like not having the good thing happen. It's like, imagine if
Yeah.
the good thing does happen. And that's kind of what we saw with that play from Nyquist. Beautiful drop pass, no look, and just he was right there. And we've seen Zack Laro in that area a lot this
Yes.
season, that, we were talking earlier in the year about how they needed more guys at the front of the net. And at first you think of a guy like a Mike McCarron or a Mark Jankowski, just like a big body who can sit in front of the net. But then you have a guy like Zack Laro, who's not the biggest guy, and he's not there, he's not just going to park it in front of the net and wait for the puck to come to him. He crashes that net. And so
Yes.
I think, and we've seen a few like near misses or a couple near goals from him, where he did just miss. And it's like, the more that happens to him, it's like, oh, just keep doing it. Cause like the more you play like that, the more good things are going to happen. Like, again, crash the net, good things happen. It's not rocket science.
Yep, go to the net. And Zack Laro, one thing I will say about him, this is a young man who has no fear. He just does
No.
not have any fear, whether it is crashing the net, whether it is talking. We talked to him after the game because there was a lot of chitter chat. Zack Laro, and he's like, look, that's part of the game, and I'm happy to engage if I need to, and he did. The other goal scorer, and again, this is not a repeat episode, you all. Jonathan Marchessault. When Jonathan Marchessault is hot, Everybody look out. Now, he only officially scored 1 goal in this game, but really he scored 2. But it was a whole thing. We won't tell you how he felt about it, because if you were watching the game and can even remotely read lips, you'll realize we can't say what he had to say about the penalty call that canceled his other goal out. He has a goal in his last 3 games, 6 points in his last 5 games, I believe. What do you attribute that to?
I think I mean, I can't speak for him, but I know that he's a guy who has been pretty vocal about, as have we, about how important chemistry is. And I think, and building and developing that chemistry, and how, adding these new players over the offseason and these free agent signings, like, that's great, but it's only, a team is the sum of its parts, but those parts have to work together. And we had just been seeing so much inconsistency with the lines and the pairings, and it just had been too much. And so he's a guy that in the past had mentioned that about, yeah, it's, I go out there every time. Sometimes I'm on a new line with guys I've never played with before. And now we started to kind of see that rhythm that and he and Philip Forsberg and Steven Stamkos have developed on that top line. And I'll tell you what, Steven Stamkos at center, where has that been? Why did we not try that earlier, Andrew Brunette? The more I watch him
out there. He threw it out there.
The more I watch him at center, I understand. I mean, in fairness, I understand the logic of the argument against it. It's like, yes, he's played center, but it's been a very long time, and he had, like, more of his recent experience comes on the wing. We have these centers in, guys like Tommy Novak that you might want to flank him with more veteran guys. But oh my gosh, Steven Stamkos at center, it's like he looks like an entirely different player now, in a good way, good way. And so I don't see him moving from that 1C role anytime soon. I think you have him as a terrific playmaker. You also have Forsberg, who we saw last year kind of unlocked that aspect of his game. Forsberg has not been scoring. He's on what, like a 12 game
It's been
drought.
84 years.
It's been a minute. But he's still getting on the score sheet. He's still making plays. And, Marchessault's the guy. He's small, he's quick, he's slippery. He can, he handles a stick really well, and he can kind of wreak havoc, and get to those tough places. And so that's, I think, the consistency first and foremost of who he's playing with, but then also just the caliber of the guys he's playing with. I think that they all sort of are complementing each other really well.
It's been great to see both he and Stamkos, new faces, really kind of find their groove. Coming up, we did see the return of the captain, Roman Yosi. But friends, we have got to talk about the real hero of Saturday night. We got to talk about Mr. Blankenburg. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you are going to love Prize Picks. It's the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it is hockey, football, or any of your other favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away over $30 million in rewards during Picksmas, and they are offering 2 free picks in December. When your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it safe and easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Check out all the action and all the fun at Prize Picks. Run your game. Okay, Emma, like, if we are being full honest, and we did have a whole segment on the, one of the last game recaps about, like, who are you putting out there on overtime? Excuse me, I don't even understand what's happening. This was another one that I think everybody was like, huh? And just full disclosure, so when it goes to overtime, one of the things the media has to do is get downstairs really, really quick. So if it goes to overtime, I usually go out in the hallway closer to the elevator and watch the overtime on a TV screen instead of live so I can get to the elevator, especially if I'm wearing heels. And I saw the puck go in and I was like, I do not know who scored that. Got in the elevator. Another reporter came in and I said, okay, wait, who scored that goal? And he said, well, of course it was Nick Blankenburg. And I was like,
just how we all drew it up.
I mean, is that not exactly Nick Blankenburg, game winner? That was also coincidentally his first overtime goal of his career. And could it have happened to a more just fantastic post-game interview guy? The answer, my friends, is no. Mr. Blankenburg is as delightful off the ice as he was Saturday night on the ice. We got a chance to talk with him. Of course, he was just really thrilled. And look, the team was thrilled. That overtime win, that team needed that win. I mean, and it's not just about getting 2 points. I think it's just about, what, that overtime was another hurdle. They needed to figure out how they could break through that. And they did it with Nick Blankenburg. Emma, I mean, isn't it exactly how you figured it would go in overtime? You were like, who's going to win this? Sir Blankenburg.
Yes, obviously. Like put him out there. Again, that I go back to my one word. This was the ultimate. Sure. Of course, Nick Blankenburg wins it in overtime because, this was now the second game in a row that had gone to overtime. And Andrew Brunette's choice of personnel for the 3-on-3 to start the 3-on-3 was interesting. No Jonathan Marchessault, Jonathan Marchessault was out there, but no Philip Forsberg to start 3-on-3.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit after the loss to Pittsburgh. It's a little bit like, okay, well, that's why did we not have our best offensive weapons out there for 3-on-3? And this time it was the second shift that Blankenburg came in. But even then, it's like
still wouldn't have thought that.
He's the second shift. I would have thought like fourth at best. Like, he's the guy you're putting out there, but it's like, okay. And we asked Andrew Brunette about it afterwards, and he was like, well, listen, clearly we were struggling to win these overtime games, so you got to try anything. And it's like, well, fair enough. Touche. Yep. But, and this is no disrespect to Nick Blankenburg as a player, but it's like, again, when the game is on the line and you need to put your best foot forward and your best weapons out there, it's a little bit like, really? Like, I feel like he's pretty far down the totem pole there in terms of offensive weapons. But, I love this guy. I think that he's such an interesting story. He was, all through high school, he was a forward. He was a forward for most of his career. And I think you see that a little bit in his play on defense, that he kind of has this sixth sense about knowing when to avoid hits, and like he gets out of the way at the right time, and he's really good at managing the puck, and he's a really good skater as well. So I think you see that a lot. But again, forward for most of his career, had 0 offers out of high school. He went to play in junior for a year, and then I think that's when he switched to defense, and that's where the University of Michigan found him. And he walked on at the University of Michigan as a defenseman, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I think that, this is a really cool story, really, and he was just, like you said, we talked to him after the game, just darling. He was so happy. I mean, he should be, but like, even he was like, yeah, this is not what I expected to happen today.
He did. He was so great talking about it. He was like, I was open and I saw Forsberg had the puck and I was like, oh, he's going to pass it to me. Yeah. And then, of course, he was right there for a rebound and put it in just beautifully in the empty net. The other thing I will say about Blankenburg, what a great defensive game he had through there. He and Brady Shea played together in this game, and the two of them. Now, look, we've had to have some hard conversations about Brady Shea. There's been a learning curve for Brady Shea, but I think we saw a much better game from him, And Nick Blankenburg, again, really stepping up. Look, we have to all be honest and say this was not a name on the tip of our tongue going into training camp. And he really impressed in training camp and spent time in Milwaukee. Very good in Milwaukee. Very good. And then made his way up. And you got to love what he's doing. The other face we saw in this game again, Roman Yosi back in the lineup. Look, never underestimate just the importance of Roman Yosi on the ice, let alone what he does. He also had a phenomenal play, a phenomenal assist on Jonathan Marchessault's goal that counted. Just absolutely skating around people, making them look a little bit embarrassed. But it's so important, I think, to have Roman Yosi back for this team. But they did a great job while he was gone. Friends, that does not mean that Roman Yosi's a bad player and a bad captain and they need to trade him. That just means that this team loves him and they stepped up. But what did it add to this game? What is the effect of Roman Yosi back on the ice for this team?
I think it's huge. I mean, I think there's a big mental component to that. It's just the comfort of knowing, like, hey, dad's back. Like, it's kind of our
Yeah.
safety net of, like, knowing that he can kind of pick up the effort, whether it's offensively or defensively. And it's like just knowing that you have him there is huge. But I think now that the team has the benefit of, the experience of playing without him, I think they needed that. They needed to not have him for a couple games
Yeah.
to actually, like, unlock that part and not rely on him too much. And
Yes.
so now you get, like, okay, now they're playing better. He comes back and it's the perfect storm. But I think, still wasn't perfect. Again, still had a
Oh,
2-goal lead that they,
like
gave
I
up.
get you
And
want to like protect a lead, but you can't turtle on a
yeah,
2-goal lead. You cannot. And they really, there is a line, and Andrew Brunette talked about this in the post game. We did too much sitting back. Like, I get that
mhm,
you want to be defensively responsible and you don't want to give up anything easy, but you have to find that spot where you are still aggressive offensively, but don't give up. And they just turtled too much. And it was so, you could see it happening. You could just slowly see what they were, and you're like, no, 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 no.
yeah.
Thank you, Nick Blankenburg, for saving our sanity in
Yep.
overtime. Yeah, coming up, this Predators team back on the ice tonight. It's the final game before the Christmas break. And friends, they've got to take on the Carolina Hurricanes. We're going to preview that coming up. Today's episode is sponsored by our great friends at FanDuel. Look, the NFL playoffs are almost here, but it is not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and they have so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, that's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Emma, look, it feels like the Nashville Predators are slowly climbing out of the hole. Like you said, this is a slow climb. You don't spring out of a deep hole, but they're making progress. Tonight, they got to try to climb a little bit further against the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes 21-11-1. This is a good Carolina team. Now, this is coming off of this is going to be their second game at a back-to-back. They played last night. I think they played, was it the New York Rangers they played last night?
Mhm,
Yeah. And they
mhm.
won. So, there's that. It's going to be their second game of a back-to-back. But when you look at this game, what do you think is going to be the most important thing for the Nashville Predators if they want to kind of end this pre-holiday break, this whole 4-game homestand on a high with momentum headed in the right direction?
Shut down Martin Necas.
Come
You
on.
gotta find out a way to shut him down. He has just been on a tear this year, and probably making Eric Tulsky sweat and wish that he had signed him to a long-term extension and not just a bridge deal, because my word, this guy's going to get paid at the end of his deal. I mean, he is becoming the player that Carolina always thought he was, but never quite blossomed into that. And you're starting to kind of lose faith a little bit in him. Can he be that? And I think he's now I think he's 11th or tied for 10th in points this year in the league. And just so what's the word, like he has so many different facets to his game. He is big, he can make plays, but he can also finish plays. He's just been, kind of this unstoppable force for Carolina. And so that's going to be, of course they have other offensive weapons. They have Seth Jarvis, they have Sebastian Aho, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that, if you're going to focus your defensive efforts, like, you need to have a guy on Necas at all times, because that is, going to be your biggest threat. Can I also point out that in the game against the Rangers, they had 2 assists from their goalie in the same game?
What in the what?
I know. I thought that was funny.
You got to love a goaltender multi-point game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And we all say, goaltending is the problem in Carolina. And believe me, it still very much is. That is their weak spot. But I think this is a team that's playing harder in front of their goalies, because they know that Freddie Anderson's not back there. And they know that they kind of need to make up for that. So, and they've got good veteran defensemen, Jacob Slavin, Brent Burns, really just kind of holding down the fort on the back end. And so this is it's a very complete team. It's a team that we thought maybe, or at least I thought, was going to take a step back this year. They lost Brady Shea, they lost Brett Pesce. You just kind of think that this is the start of the decline, or their window is starting to close a little bit, but it does not appear to be the case so far. And they play in a very, very tough metropolitan division.
Yes.
So they come to play every night. And so this is going to be a big test for Nashville.
Yeah. You mentioned all of their offensive weapons. If you look at across the league as a whole, Carolina is 5th in goals for. This is a team that can score a lot of goals. They're also very good on special teams. They're 6th on the power play. They are 3rd on the penalty kill. So, and look, that's something Nashville has not really been able to capitalize on the power play like we would like to see them do. Roman Yosi will be back. Hopefully, that will maybe, if Nashville gets an opportunity on the power play, that will kind of spark something for them. Interestingly, Carolina went 1 for 5 against the Rangers on the power play. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, this is a team that can score a lot. I suspect we will see Juuse Saros in net. We had Justus Onanen in net in the game against now I'm drawing a blank. Who did we just beat in overtime? I'm so overwhelmed with the win. I don't even care who it was over.
LA Kings.
LA Kings. The bad news. Don't even care who the opponent was. Nashville won in overtime. Justus Onanen, really great in that game. And we just want to do a PSA. You can still do all the same cheers, regardless of which goaltender's in net in Nashville. Like, say, can you see? I know it's not exactly the same thing, but we can still do that. And then you can also yell juice when he makes a big save. PSA.
I feel like I got some backlash for saying that on Twitter, because people thought it would be disrespectful to Saros, that, like, Saros should have his own thing and Onanen should have his own thing. So might I suggest,
Please do.
Instead of juice, how about like deuce? Because he's
go.
Juice. It sounds similar, it gives a similar effect, but it keeps them separate.
I'm open to that. I really am.
It's a
I
thought.
just feel like he needs to get that experience. He deserves the experience. Also, that's a whole lot of fin in net. Like even up in the 300s where we sit, you look down and you're like, that is like a Yosi Saros and a half.
Yeah.
Net there. That's a lot of fin in net. But I do think tonight against Carolina, I expect that we're going to see Yosi Saros in that. It'll be interesting to see goaltending like from Carolina. Is it Tokarski is their backup right now? Freddie Anderson out, knee surgery. He's gonna miss a lot. He's gonna be out for a long stretch. It happened, I think, mid-November. So don't expect him back anytime soon. Let's see what happens there. But Nashville, they're going to need to get some goals on the board, which has been a struggle this season, but they're making some progress. We're going to have to see what happens tonight against Carolina. Look, I don't want to bring up a bad thing, but we need to end on a high note because this is the anniversary of the Dallas Stars game where the Nashville Predators gave up 2 goals in 13 seconds to lose the game. Can we just not?
Wow, I've forgotten about that.
Yeah, no, my cells remember that.
Oh yeah.
It was so bad.
Yeah, and also would like to point out that Carolina, this game was in Carolina, but that was the team where Yosi Saros made history a couple seasons ago with, what was it, like 50 something saves in a game?
Yes.
Or 60 something?
64, I think.
64. Yeah. Like, and I mean, listen, when you put that many shots on goal and you don't win, like that's more of a fluke than anything else.
Yeah.
So let's not let that happen again. Because
no. Defense, we need you to do your thing. Offense, we need you to do your thing. We really would like to go into the holiday with a little upward trajectory. The Preds starting to dig out of that hole. Let's see if they can continue to do it tonight against Carolina. We are going to be back with a special show tomorrow. We're going to talk about the World Juniors, get you prepped for that tournament. You are going to want to watch this tournament if you are invested in the Predators' future. Also, we're going to play a little holiday takes from a hat. So make sure you tune in on tomorrow's show. Before we wrap up this Monday episode, though, Emma, let everyone know where they can find you and your work.
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
And you can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Thanks so much for joining us for our Monday episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with a special Christmas Eve episode. We'll see you then.